Let's bring in former federal and state prosecutor Elie Honig. He's the author of the new book, Hatchet Man, How Bill Barr Broke the Prosecutor's Code and Corrupted the Justice Department. Great to have you on the show. Let's start by asking you, what is the prosecutor's code?
So, Mika, the prosecutor's code are the lessons that you learn from being a real prosecutor like I was here in the Southern District of New York. And one of the arguments I make in the book is Bill Barr was never a real prosecutor. He never tried a case. And so what I do in the book is I tell a lot of sort of behind-the-scenes stories of things I learned and then draw out the lessons and show how Bill Barr violated them. For example, the first thing I was ever taught as an AUSA was all you have is your credibility. Every time you stand up in the well of the courtroom and say, representing the United States of America, the judge will tend to believe you, the jury will tend to believe you, the American public will tend to believe you, not because you're you, but because you're part of DOJ. Bill Barr came in and lied to us. He lied to us for 2 years, everything from the Mueller report to fanning the flames of the big lie of election fraud. And I call Bill Barr a liar in the book. Federal judges have said it more politely. I'm not a federal judge. I don't need to be polite, so I pull no punches. He lied to us over and over again.
So you actually blame the lack of experience instead of the lack of character for what Bill Barr did over the past several years?
Both, Joe. Yeah, I think the lack of experience sort of made him ill-equipped to be attorney general because he doesn't understand what it's all about, the stakes, what it means to be in a courtroom. But also, yes, there's a lack of character. I mean, lying, I think, shows a lack of character. And beyond that, Bill Barr weaponized DOJ in a political way. I served about equal time at DOJ under the Bush administration and the Obama administration. It made no difference to me on the line. Bill Barr came in and he used DOJ to protect Donald Trump in a dishonest way, to protect Michael Flynn, to protect Roger Stone, and to pump the president's, whatever his political narratives of the moment were, whether he was trying to pump up the threat of protests in various cities or pump up the threat of election fraud. Bill Barr was right there reflecting whatever Donald Trump's political talking point of the moment was.
What was the motivation? You know, there are a lot of Republicans, establishment Republicans, that didn't like Donald Trump, but said, hey, this is a Bush guy. We can trust Barr. He's a pro. He's not going to let Donald Trump politicize the Justice Department. We should be glad to have him in there. Quite a few people who, of course, regretted what they said within a month or so. But what was the motivation for a guy who had a good reputation in Washington, D.C., wrapping himself around Donald Trump?
Yeah, Joe, count me in that group. I publicly praised initially the selection of Bill Barr. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, same reasons you just laid out. What were his motives? That's a great question. Why? Why did he do this? I argue two reasons. First of all, Bill Barr has a very extreme view of the law. The technical term for it is the unitary executive theory. It's the idea that the president is the executive branch and the executive branch sort of stands above the other branches. The problem is Bill Barr took that to a ridiculous extreme to the point where the president, who happened to be Donald Trump, is completely above the law, completely unaccountable. The second thing, and this one surprised me in the research for this book, Joe, is that Bill Barr is a true sort of old school culture warrior. We found some things that he wrote and said back in the 90s that really were shocking. He talked about the need for, and I quote, God's law to guide us in everything we do in our government. He railed against secularism, meaning sort of non-religious forms of government. He blamed, and I quote, the homosexual movement for many of the ills in our society. So Bill Barr has this very extreme view of the way religiosity needs to govern our affairs. And by the way, that made its way into his decision-making. He went on an execution spree on his way out of office. He had more people put to death in his last 6 months on the job than this country federally in the prior 6 decades. And he went into the Supreme Court, his DOJ, and argued against equal protections for LGBTQ people. So those two motivations, plus a lack of experience and character, I think sort of created this perfect storm.
Mike Barnicle's with us and has a question. Mike.
Mr. Honig, the former Southern District U.S. Attorney Rudolph Giuliani, the semi-famous Rudolph Giuliani, has recently been suspended from the practice of law in both Manhattan and in the District of Columbia for basically saying crazy things out loud. With regard to Bill Barr, he is on record as having distorted and even lied about facts of law during the course of his tenure as Attorney General. Where has the American Bar Association been on Bill Barr? Where is it now?
I think the American Bar Association and the states where Bill Barr is licensed have got to deal with this, because Bill Barr lied to the American public, not a crime, but absolutely a basis to lose your law license. He lied in front of Congress. I think the bar associations, the licensing associations, have a really important job. And Mike, I'm glad you raised Rudy Giuliani, because I talk about this in the book. If you've ever been inside the SDNY's building, we have a wall of portraits of everyone who's ever had the honor of serving as U.S. attorney there. And Rudy's up on that wall. In the 80s, he was a U.S. attorney. And I confess, when I started in the office, we used to admire Rudy. I used to brag to people, hey, this is the office Rudy used to run. But boy, what an utter disgrace and embarrassment Rudy Giuliani has become, for the exact reasons you say, a man who has lost his moral compass and really forgotten all those things that I call the prosecutor's code in the book.
So what do you make of Bill Barr's sort of last-minute switch around the certification of the election, that interview that he did where he was essentially sending a message to the president that he wasn't going to go along with the president's lies about the 2020 election?
I completely reject this revisionist history that has taken hold among not just Donald Trump. He's the king of revisionist history of I'll just deny it and make it so. But people around Donald Trump are trying to do the same sort of image rehabilitation act, Bill Barr among them. Now, Bill Barr did come forward way too late in December of 2020, so 3 weeks after the election, and say, we've found no evidence of election fraud. Great. Wonderful. The problem is, absent from Bill Barr's rehabilitation tour, is any mention, and I cover this in depth in the book, of the fact that for 6 months leading up to the election, when the big lie of election fraud was getting spread and catching fire, he was one of the main people fanning the flames, and he did it as Attorney General. So that credibility I talked about, that DOJ seal, was behind him. He went on national TV. He went in front of Congress and he said there's this enormous risk of election fraud and there's nothing we can do to stop it. He had no facts to back it. He is to blame for spreading this election fraud. I'm not going to let him revise history after the fact now.
The new book is Hatchet Man: How Bill Barr Broke the Prosecutor's Code and Corrupted the Justice Department. Ellie Honig, thank you very much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the book.